Hi. Good evening. I'd like to call tonight's select board meeting to order. It's Monday, April 13th. As usual, if you're able, would you please rise, say the Pledge of Allegiance with us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public hearing. Annual town meeting warrant. First up, planning board land use ordinance articles. And we're going to have our, hopefully, duly elected moderator run through as a trial run, if that's all right with you, Bo.
That's fine, yep.
So if you just start on Article 3, and we'll go through that, and we'll have public comment, and yeah. Is he all wired for sound there?
He's all wired now.
I'm lit up. How about that?
So Bo will read, then we'll look at the exhibits, and then we'll take public comment, and then we'll try to get through these ordinances first.
Okay,
Oh, you're on it.
just to identify myself, I'm Bo Chesney from the Lawrence Road. And before we start going through the articles, obviously there are a number of ordinance related articles here. I've looked into whether or not we can approve them as a group. When we get to town meeting, we can do that unless there's an objection. So as we go through these meetings, we'll see if that's a possibility or not. But I just wanted to alert folks to that option. But we'll go through them in detail tonight. We'll start with Article 3. Article 3 shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine, regarding Section 106 Rules of Construction be enacted. Exhibit A. Do we have any questions or comments on Exhibit A?
This is Exhibit A, so everybody knows. This is all of Exhibit A, so all the land use articles will be in here, and then there's some supporting documents and a synopsis document that goes with it. They're all up on the table.
So Tim, it'll be really helpful.
Go get the glasses.
Okay. So Article 3 concerns rules of construction. So it's on page 1. That everyone's understanding? I think we have to wait for Tim. No, I got this. Okay, so I'm just gonna read it. Okay,
Sure.
it goes where. So here's the document. Under Section 100 General Rules of Construction, to the extent that any provision of this ordinance conflicts with any other provision of this ordinance or with any other ordinance enacted by the town of Pownell, including but not limited to the town of Pownell shoreland zoning ordinance, the more restrictive provisions shall apply. So that is just a clarification. Any questions? Sir, please come up and identify yourself just so that the viewing audience will know that you're you.
Hi, John Green. I got a question, I guess, for all of these. I was on the planning board in Alna, Maine, and we had public hearings on ordinance changes. It's very interesting. It gave the folks in the audience a chance to ask questions But the key was questions to the planning board. How can we get feedback on their philosophy to write these changes if the planning board isn't here? I think somebody brought up the issue one time, was that a requirement? And I think the answer is yes. So this is, I don't know how, I haven't lived in Pownell very long, but I can tell you, there seems to be a disconnect, not being able to talk to the planning board directly on something that they've come up with, really good ideas, but I mean, seems to be a disconnect.
But we have two members of the planning board here, John.
Three.
Three,
We have an alternate as well.
sorry. There are three members of the planning board here right now.
They identify themselves?
Absolutely.
Holden, that was alternate? Okay,
I'm Todd Mellon, I'm one of the co-chairs.
okay,
Mercedes Ford, Lawrence Road, member.
okay. So does that constitute a quorum? I guess that's the next question. I don't know.
Well. So some clarification, Mr. Green, just so you know, that these ordinances were, our code enforcement officer, along with a planning, a town planner that we've hired as a consultant, has drafted the language to these ordinances. Now, the planning board spent time discussing them, but these public hearings are for the public to make comments on what we're presenting. There's no obligation to have the planning board participate in this. They have come voluntarily, nor is it a requirement for planning boards to draft changes in the land use ordinances. That's not a requirement by the state of Maine. So.
What I'm asking, John, is a requirement that the planning board forum be present for a public hearing on their proposals. I don't know, again,
No.
a few years before I, was on a planning board, but back then, it was, I guess the way it works in other towns, maybe obviously not Pownell, but the planning board has their own public hearing that isn't involved with the select. That's what I'm used to.
All these, thank you, Shane, all these changes have been discussed during planning board meetings, which are always open to the public. But this is the public hearing, John. Yep.
We have two public hearings listed on the agenda and were noticed in the paper. The first one is the planning board public hearing. We're having Bo here to actually do a practice run of going through all the articles as it will. We have three members of the planning board here to respond to questions along with our CEO. So that's kind of how we've done it the last 2 or 3 years anyway.
Would it be too much to ask?
Can you come up to the microphone because it doesn't catch your comments? Please, thank you.
Right, I mean, I'm glad that members of the planning board are here, but I mean, going forward. Would it be too much to ask the town attorney if this is the proper process to?
We will definitely.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
You're welcome. So anyway, is there any discussion about Article 3, which is about Rule 106 rules of construction? All right. Bo.
Moving on to Article 4, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 301 General Provisions be enacted. The proposed ordinance is available for review and inspection at town clerk's office and available at the town meeting as Exhibit A as well. And we're talking about Section 301 General Provisions in this case.
Does anybody have any questions about Section 301? Tim, could you summarize what?
Sure, I can give it a try. So this is mostly, this is putting some language in that was taken out at some time in the past. And it clarifies non-conforming lots of record and what can and can't be done with them. It's a lot of it's housekeeping because there's a lot of things in here that allows us better enforcement of the ordinances.
Okay, so it's non-conforming lots. A lot of clarification, there was some ambiguous language, and it makes it a lot easier to, for the applicant and the enforcing agency to come to some understanding of what can and cannot be done. Are there any questions about section 301, general provisions? That's defined on page 1, 2, and 3. Oh,
Okay, Article 5, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 304 non-conforming lots be enacted? And maybe that was just addressed in Tim's comments.
They're the same, yes, same answers.
any questions about Article 5? Article 5, yeah. Same clarification language. Just making it easier for the applicant and for the code enforcement officer to have an understanding.
I want to point out that a lot of work in these first ones were done by our hired consultant. She put together a lot of the language, and it's also, everything in here has been vetted by the town attorney as well.
Article 6, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 400 definitions be enacted? We're now to Section 400 definitions.
Page 3. Tim, there's a couple of things there.
So commercial farm buildings, we did not have, that's a new definition. It's described in the ordinance, but we didn't really have a definition for it. And also it's described because there have been some changes later on in the ordinance that talks about them. And should I go on to the other definitions?
Please.
So frontage, just better describes frontage from what it was before. Again, more to match what's always been the interpretation of our ordinances. A lot of record. This is the attorney's. He didn't like our description, so he wrote his own. And I have to admit, it makes more sense. Net developable area. We added the width of 50 feet or less between property boundaries, as it was listed in the ordinance under zoning, but never really described in the definition of net developable area. And it's the same with the next one, residential. And then another definition for agriculture, normal agriculture and forestry building. Again, it gives a definition of what is in the ordinance.
Any questions about Article 6? Frankly, the definitions about agricultural buildings and some distance requirements and a lot of record. Oh,
Article 7, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 501 Establishment of Zoning District be enacted? We're talking about Section 501.
501 is found on page 6. Tim, just a brief overview of what this is.
So this adds an overlay district for mobile home parks, something we didn't have before. So it's part of it is actually part of RB, but legally it's supposed to be listed on its own.
So clarification of the town's new designation of a mobile home park overlay.
So it doesn't describe where it is. It's on the map, which is of the handouts here. And you can see on the handout, that is the sections that are crisscrossed in red over, it looks like yellow.
Okay. Questions about Article 7? Oh, Article 8?
Article 8, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 504's zoning districts be enacted?
Section 504 is on page 6. Tim?
So this starts out with defining a height. It better defines the height restrictions that we use in our ordinance. It changes them a little bit. It adds a little bit of height, but also takes away some exemptions. And going on further, the next one in street frontage requirements, the word continuous is added to both A and B to make it just spells out what the planning board has always required for street frontages, continuous instead of broken. And again, the height restriction better defines what we require for maximum height, building heights and uses.
Any questions about articles? Yeah, sure. Step.
Jesse Peters, Allen Road. The question I have is, what determination was used to come up with the 45-foot number? It used to be 35 feet. That was based on the largest ladder that we could bring.
So the 45 feet came from an average house, 2.5 stories, with now we're building houses with 9-foot ceilings. Actually goes over 45 feet to the peak.
Okay.
And also, we didn't want to have to send every application to the planning board for site plan review on something like that.
Okay. That answers my question.
Jane, do you have a question?
Shane Brady from Allen Road. I don't know if the fire department needs to have a ladder truck that can reach the top of every building, or is that just like good practice? So that would be my question to the fire chief. Because if you got a ladder truck that won't reach a window, how does?
Yes, please.
Right now, if we have a reported fire, we have a mutual aid ladder truck coming. Yeah, we don't have a place to put a ladder truck or the money to purchase a ladder truck right now.
Thank you, Chief. Yes.
And this is just a,
Tim, in that first paragraph that starts, no structure shall exceed 45 feet in height, can you take a look at the last sentence in that paragraph? Nor shall they apply to telecommunications towers, comma, subject to any other applicable provisions of this ordinance. I'm just wondering if we're missing a word here. Am I missing something? Subject to any other applicable provisions of this ordinance. Does it mean which are subject to other applicable provisions of this ordinance?
Well, telecommunication towers have an ordinance of their own. And so they are allowed to be taller,
True.
but they're already going through site plan review, and they're also already going through the tower ordinance.
Perfect. I am just wondering,
This is a grammatical
thank you.
run-on sentence there that we need to correct.
Thank you. I just want to clean that up in the,
Great grammar. Series. So that's a comma after habitation and a small n, nor.
oh, really?
Obviously, the chair missed that. Does everybody agree that that would be something we need to? Good. Good catch, Mercedes. Oh, number,
Article 9, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 601 driveway and driveway entrance be enacted?
that we found on page. Thank you.
Skip.
Skip something?
We had more of 504 to go.
Okay. Forget that Bo read that and we'll continue on 504. All right, Bo, it was my mistake.
So under RA, BRA, rural district, RA, I should say. So this comes with the change in the definitions for farms and farm buildings. And it better describes a commercial.
Page 8.
Yep, sorry.
On page 8.
Commercial farm building versus, how did we define the other one? Normal agricultural and forestry buildings.
Questions about commercial farm buildings? Okay.
And also, right below it, it talks about the height again.
Feet. Page 9.
Again, this is a different district. Next district still uses the word continuous in describing the road frontage required. So those two will be on every district. And it's the same with the height restrictions in this district as well.
300 feet and height restrictions. Any questions about height restrictions or continuous feet on page 9? Page 10?
So this takes a mobile home park parcel identified on lot number 30 on the town tax map number 2 out, because now we have a district overlay district for mobile home parks that are described on the zoning map.
Clarification? Any questions about page 10? Page 11?
So more talk about special exceptions and the commercial farm buildings. And it also mentions the mobile home park and mobile home park overlay district as shown on the town zoning map. And again, structures over 45 feet, page 10.
Any questions about special exceptions? Page 10. Page 11?
Page 11 is a repeat of what we went over before in RA.
Questions? Page 12?
Page 5 is finishing the ordinance. There's in the ordinance, just 5 was listed as district standards in RB, and there was no explanation, and all of this language was left out. So this just copies what was in RA.
So just clarification that the same standards exist in RB as they did in RA. Any questions about page 12? Page 13.
So down at the bottom, space and dimensional standards, again, describes 300 continuous feet for road frontage.
300 continuous feet. Any questions about that number? Now, Bo, can you just reread your Article 9?
Article 9, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 601 driveway and driveway entrance be enacted?
Down on page 14, Tim, some number changes?
So this brings the chart up to the current DOT standards for site distance driveways.
Any questions about page 14? Article info?
Article 10, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 604 mobile home parks be enacted?
On page 15, Tim?
So this this is something from our attorney as well. And it better describes the statute that goes with the law.
So coordinating our statute with state law?
Correct. So 5. Then, no, Article 1 is on.
I'm getting there. Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 605 Single Lot Ordinance be enacted?
This is just correcting an error. Article 8 was in a previous zoning ordinance. And now it is in section 610.
Just clarification for applicants' benefit. Section, Article 12.
Article 12, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 609 Manufactured Housing be enacted?
So this sets standards for manufactured houses.
609 on page 15. Go ahead, John.
Is bullet point number 4 missing from this? Or what? Okay.
Oh. 13.
Article 13, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 610 Public and Private Roads be enacted?
On page 16. Tim?
So again, an error that didn't caught before, take out the word major or major subdivision and put in conservation. And for some reason, there was a checklist that was copied and yes, no, shouldn't have been there. And then in the standards for Pownell roads, it does not mention hammerhead, it's turnaround as what's allowed.
Questions about Article 14 on page 16?
We're talking about Article 13.
Apologize. Questions about Article 13 on page 16?
Okay, Article 14, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 613 Floodplain Management be enacted?
16. Tim?
So again, this keeps up with, replaces things in the ordinance that were old and replaces them with actual statutes that are current.
Coordinating with the state law, updating our, any questions? Oh,
Article 15, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 615 Accessory Dwelling Units be enacted?
starts at page 17, Tim?
So there's quite a few changes in this. So in A, this makes it so it follows the law on the amount of accessory dwelling units allowed on a lot. And again, B describes the same thing. No more than one accessory dwelling unit shall be permitted per lot. That's under state statute is what we can allow more, but we can't allow less. And then which will be now D. Accessory dwelling units shall contain a minimum of 190 square feet of gross floor area and shall not exceed 850 square feet of gross floor area or 50% of the habitable square footage space of the principal dwelling unit, whichever is smaller. So that basically used to just say 750 feet. So now it is adding 100 feet, a little bit more space, a little bit better use of materials in the building trades, and also limits the size for smaller dwellings. And next, E. It, again, it follows the statute on accessory dwelling units of, we have to require enough wastewater, enough, and same with the water under F, enough space for wastewater, I should say, enough size. And accessory dwelling units may not be rented for periods of less than 6 months without registering it with the code officer as a short-term rental unit. So that better describes what a short-term rental unit is. And again, it's legal stuff. Accessory dwelling units shall comply with all applicable federal, state, and local laws and ordinances and regulations. And what has been struck is, I'm trying to find it. So the state statute change says we cannot require one of the dwellings to be lived in by the owner. So both dwellings could be rented, and that's for state statute. And that actually doesn't have to take effect this year, but we're getting it done. And all dwelling units and accessory structures permitted on a single lot shall remain under single ownership unless or until the lot is lawfully divided in accordance with the applicable statute.
Okay, any questions about Article 15? Okay.
My only question would be, is the 50% habitable space from the primary structure really needed? Because as it is, a 850 square foot house is already on the small side. So if a person in town has a 900 square foot old farmhouse and the kid's old enough that they want to build a new one for themselves to retire and kids move into the old farmhouse, it would make it so they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
You say that again. I'm sorry. I tried to follow your dimensions. So I apologize.
Yeah. So let's say you had a 900 square foot farmhouse and you're getting older and you want to move into a newer house that's more updated or easier to maintain. And you wanted to build and you had, let's say 50 acres. You wanted to build a new house. You wouldn't be allowed to build another 900 square foot house or 850 square foot house without dividing the lot.
That's right.
So
That's actually an incorrect statement. In Pownell, if you have an additional 60,000 square feet on top of the 90,000 square feet, so 150,000 square feet, which is 3.14 acres, you are now allowed to have two houses on the same lot along with the accessory dwelling unit. And that's part of the LD 2003 change a couple years ago.
Thank you for that clarification.
okay, so is it 60,000 for each additional unit or just the first one?
First one.
Okay.
I wouldn't have known that. Thank you.
I have a question. At the bottom of page 18, it says amended 624.
But it was just kind of got carried over from the last ordinance. This section was amended just last year.
Okay, should we just strike that amended 624 language?
Somehow we need to keep track, and Becky and I will work on a way to keep track. We need to keep track of the changes and when they happen. Because if somebody is in somebody has a circumstance that they own property before this change was made, then they're kind of grandfathered. with the old ordinance. So I need to know when the ordinance was changed.
Okay. Is that true with all the changes we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
It is amended.
Called the Sherry Dietrich clause.
And my wife. Okay. Another question. I'm sorry. Another question, on page 19 under I, it says all dwelling units and accessory structures permitted on a single lot shall remain under single ownership unless and until the lot is lawfully divided in accordance with applicable statute. Properties aren't necessarily currently owned by single, under single ownership. My wife and I own the property together, for instance.
How would you clarify that?
And you could have a corporate ownership.
The intention is to, not sell one off without land, sell a building without land. So I guess we can go and try to wordsmith this and come up with some different language there.
Okay.
Tim, what if we just, this is just me thinking, but take out single and just say current ownership? So that way, if it is a joint couple, they, that way it's whoever currently owns the building can't sell it off. That was just kind of one that kind of popped in real quick that may alleviate it.
If it's current ownership, that means you'd never be able to sell either one. So
And single doesn't imply that multiple people are. No rules. Todd Mellon, Pelham or Merrill Road, co-chair of the planning board. I don't think single implies that it's an individual. I think that single would imply that it's owned by something, whether it's a corporation, multiple people. It's under a single ownership. I don't know how you could define that any differently. But that's the way I interpret
that's the way
that word.
To be interpreted.
And I understand. I just think it may need some wordsmithing.
Right, well, why don't we,
Ask Isabel to
Yeah.
take a look at that. For next meeting.
I think Mr. Green was next.
John Green, Royal Road. I want to thank the planning board members who are here. I know you folks spent a lot of time on this. I've served on a couple of offices in town. You're basically volunteers and, not much make compensation if anything. So I just want to thank you very much. And Tim too, because Tim is obviously working hand in hand. I've got two questions on the accessory dwelling units. The first one, there's an LD 2004, I think, that started all this probably 2-3 years ago, and that's passed. That's what this is based on quite a bit. But there's another LD that was passed last year. Is that still in effect, which is going to jump us up to 2 dwelling units in every town, or is that gone away by some way or a measure? Does anybody know the answer to that?
So that's LD 1829.
Yeah,
There are a few changes that are going to affect us in that. Most of the changes in that are going to affect larger towns with growth districts and public water and sewer.
okay,
They don't take effect until next year.
that's right, July 1st, 2027, I believe.
It could be 28 because they were still working on that.
Okay,
The legislature wasn't really sure when it was gonna,
okay.
they might be now, but at the time they weren't really.
Right, there's just a couple of days left in the session, so, okay. So it may or may not affect us. I guess that's what you're saying, if it's still in a discussion.
It's still, well, I think, yes, everything's, until they decide, everything's up in the air. But again, I think it's mostly geared towards larger towns with public water and sewer.
Okay, thank you, Tim. The second question is 615A. it talks about the three criteria that you can put an ADU in. One is an existing building. One is attached to an existing building. And then the third one, I quote, as a new structure on the plot that already has a primary dwelling. It sounds to me, if that's the case, then if somebody had an old barn that they wanted to fix up and put an ADU into, they couldn't do it because it's not a new structure. That doesn't seem to be in line with what I've heard, reading some of the articles about this. So I guess it's just a question for the planning board and the powers to be to perhaps check into that. In other words, it doesn't seem that somebody could take an existing building that's separated from your house and put an ADU into it. That's all. Thank you.
I think this language was taken from statute, but I will check on that and we'll check with Isabel again, who's the person we've contracted to help us with this, and see if she can come up with something different.
So I just want to be clear. Could you stand up, John? I just want to be clear. So you're suggesting that somebody who had a barn that was separate from the house would by this
Would not be allowed to put an
Would not-
ADU into it.
be allowed to put an ADU within the existing separate barn,
Yeah.
according to the statute? Thank you. I just want clarification.
Susan Peters, Allen Road. I just need clarification because I'm confused on this. So if they wanted to sell the ADU, it would have to follow town ordinances as far as road frontage and size of lot, I would assume. So why do we need this unless I'm misunderstanding?
So they wouldn't be able to sell the building itself. So, in state law, you can do that. That's how you get condos. So, we're trying to clarify that in Pownell, you can't do that. It has to stay in ownership. Single ownership, or however we're gonna describe it.
I'm still not getting it, but I'll take your word for it.
No, no, no.
We still would have to, if they wanted to sell that, wouldn't they have to have the ordinance requirements of the road frontage and the lot size for that accessory dwelling being sold?
They would with this. So unless it meets all the applicable standards, it can't be done.
But aren't those standards already in the ordinances?
A lot of things get sold before they get here.
Understand, Susan, that we're trying to prevent a building being owned by a person who does not have title to the land. You're gonna save me here because
Trying to save me. So let's just say somebody owned a piece of land that was big enough to have two dwellings on it. And they wanted to move their mother or their father onto that piece of property and put an accessory or a second dwelling. You're saying that that dwelling would have to be owned by the original landowner, not by the person who's living in the house, even if it's a relative? Okay, so that does away with mother-in-law apartments altogether,
Why?
because,
You can still put your mother-in-law in there.
okay. Yeah,
And you understand the logic behind not.
I do, but I would think that in certain circumstances, it should be allowed when you're dealing with elderly parents or something like that.
I think we're really trying hard to be careful about condoization.
I understand that. Not something I want to see either.
You could always separate the lot. You divide your lot, give it to your mother-in-law, if you're brave enough.
Yeah.
This just kind of piggybacks off what Jesse was saying. And it goes back to the 50% of the primary structure. Is the 50% of the primary structure really needed? And then also with the 850 square feet, if somebody wanted to buy a manufactured house, it limits them to a single wide because the smallest double wide you can buy is 960 square feet. So let's say Jesse didn't have the time to build his house or build his mother-in-law a house, and he wanted to buy a manufactured house, it really cuts down and limits the requirement or what he can purchase and what he can put in.
I think we talked about this last time we presented this. Recollection of size of a double wide mobile home in the last conversation about
We talked about the width of a single wide.
width.
And we had 14 foot as a width, and it was brought up that most trailers are 13'4" or something like that. So that's the line that we struck the whole line. Required width.
Just to get back to the double wides, the smallest double wide you can buy, or the smallest one that they manufacture, is 24 by 40, which comes out to 960 square feet minus the, I'm not sure what they consider it for living space.
Okay. Isn't there a, well, no, because we're talking about accessory dwelling units. So. We'll talk to the attorney on that one. Okay. Thank you, Shane. Bo? We're at 17.
Article 17, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 807 Criteria and Standards be enacted.
That was
We need 16.
Just seeing if you're paying attention. Let's go back to Article 16. Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 801 applicability be enacted?
page 19.
So this, again, accessory structures wasn't in there before. We've added that. Some things come up and you recognize that you're missing some things, so that was added. And then we've also taken sand and gravel pits out of an exemption for special exemption.
Questions? Now, Article 17, my mistake.
Shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 807 Criteria and Standards be enacted?
Who's on page 19 and 20, Tim?
So this is the same thing. It brings our site distance requirements up to DOT current standards.
Questions? Article 18, Bo?
Article 18, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 901 Purpose and Review Criteria be enacted?
Page 20, Jim?
I'm looking at Mercedes because this was her thing.
This language more explicitly links the criteria that follow with the comprehensive plan.
Appreciate that. Question?
We have one here.
Just a quick comment. It should say 2021 comprehensive plan.
You? Any other questions? Article 19,
Article 19, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 902 Authority and Administration be enacted?
that's on page 23, Tim?
More legal language. and see what was struck. There wasn't a lot of information there, and the attorney thought we needed to, so. It's
Clarification for subdivision.
correct, for legal reasons.
Questions? Oh. 20?
Article 20, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 904 Review Procedure and Submission for Minor Subdivision be enacted?
On page 24, Tim?
So this brings the distance required between existing roads and new roads to be the same in a minor subdivision as it is in a conservation subdivision.
John Green.
Couple of things on this. Two people live side by side. They want to put in a road, 1 or 2 lots for a couple of kids. And is it correct if one person puts in the road first and that road is within 750 feet of their neighbor next door, that the neighbor won't be able to put in a road for their kids? Does that mean this? Okay. So the comprehensive plan talks about equitable changes to ordinances. How can it be equitable if one person puts in a road with meeting all the requirements, but the person next door can't do it?
Like, I'm not certain, you'd have to go through, if this is in a subdivision, this is within the comprehensive plan, because we actually we want to minimize the number of roads going into a large tract plan.
Okay, well, again, the comprehensive plan, I think, says a couple of different things. It wants to talk about open space. That's great. Everybody wants that. But at the same time, it says changes to your ordinances have to be equitable for everybody. Just seems in an instance like this, neighbors side by side, the roads are within that 750 feet. They're not putting in a conservation subdivision, they're putting in a minor subdivision. The second thing, and it's, maybe I'm jumping around a little bit, but the Stetson subdivision right now between the roads is less than 750 feet. And that deals with the next article that's going to come up. So something's not right here.
Thank you.
Sure.
So the reason behind putting in the 750 feet is one, to make the minor and conservation subdivisions the same. It's also to prevent somebody like Stetson, who owns a lot of frontage, from putting in multiple minor subdivisions and thus circumventing the conservation subdivision, which the whole point of the conservation subdivision is to make subdivisions more compliant with the comprehensive plan, which is allows these folks to get the houses off the roads, gives them longer roads. So the unfortunate consequence, we can't allow for every circumstance. And so we're trying our best to accommodate as much as we can, but we also have to try and cut out some of the potential loopholes to the ordinances, if that makes sense.
What I'm saying, on the plan that was submitted by Stetson a couple of months ago, right now, the distance between the roads is less than 750 feet.
That's not true.
Take a look at it. I'll take a look at it too, sir.
So,
Yeah.
so I think what John is probably talking about is the lot density calculation.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's not the lot density. It's the distance between the new roads that are going in. And again, I may be wrong, I'm sorry, but getting back to the first point, the equitable words in the comprehensive plan, I don't know how you try to do this without taking that into consideration. Another point I'm sorry. Another point, if you look at the online maps of the lots in Pownell, I saw a couple of parcels that are already within 750 feet of an intersection. Okay, that's what we're talking about, intersection. So I don't think they could possibly put in a minor subdivision because they're too close. Okay? I think these questions for the attorney, you know, this is kind of nitty gritty, but you know, these things come up from time to time. Thank you.
John, are you suggesting that on page 24, section I, that particular article would prohibit minor subdivision from an intersection? Is that what you're suggesting? If the road did not have the 750 feet? Just trying to, if I'm going to talk to an attorney, I want to make sure I understand what I'm going to ask.
Okay. You and I are neighbors. We both have enough land to put in a minor subdivision, okay? We have a common boundary. I've seen cases where people put the roads right at the common boundary because it kind of works out pretty good. So you subdivide your property as a minor subdivision first, you put the road right in along the common boundary, you build maybe 2, 3 lots for your kids. And then a year later, I say, gee, I want to put a minor subdivision for my child. And I say the best topographical location is right beside the boundary, just like you did. I'm way within that 750-foot distance. I think this says I couldn't do it because you did it first.
Thank you. I just needed to clarify that. Jane, did you have your hand up?
I was just looking for a clarification question. Is this on your side of the road, the other side of the road, or any side of any road?
Same side, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't equate to the other, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, like, if somebody across the street pulling in.
Thank you, yeah.
Just a point of clarity for the board, I'll just remind the board, in planning board processes, we always have the ability to grant a waiver in extreme circumstances. But the reason we write ordinances is to make sure that we are protecting the vast amount of applications and making sure that that's consistent with the comprehensive plan. But we grant waivers as part of many applications if they're deemed appropriate.
And I think Mr. Green knows that. I just think he was trying to clarify a point of order here. Thank you, Mercedes.
Just a final comment, John. The second issue, which isn't, you know, neighbor to neighbor, is if somebody can't put in a minor subdivision because they're within that 750 feet of an intersection. That to me is a taking. The town is saying that we've changed the ordinance so that you can't meet the requirements for minor subdivision because your full frontage is already 750 feet. It's not greater than 750 feet from an intersection. And when I
understand what you're saying. I'm not quite sure it's a taking because there is avenue of appeal. So would you at least agree with that? There's avenue of appeal.
Well, I mean, there's special exceptions. Maybe
So let me find out, you know, from the attorney. Okay, thank you. That's a good point. Do you want to?
John, could I say one more thing before you move on, just maybe to help clarify? In order to put a subdivision in, you're going to need 600 feet of road frontage anyway. And so while there may be the situations where you can't generate that 750 feet, it's probably going to be very unlikely because you need so much road frontage just to put the subdivision in anyway. So under most circumstances, I think it'd be a problem. And as Mercedes said, there's always a possibility for a waiver if needed.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for that clarification, Todd. Okay. Oh,
Article 21, correct?
that's correct.
Article 21 shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 908 Performance Standards Conservation Subdivision be enacted.
So again, this gives a parallel to the comprehensive plan and the reasoning. And also further on, it describes how you calculate the space between roads as the center of each roadway.
Questions? Oh,
Article 22, shall an ordinance entitled 2026 Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Pownell, Maine regarding Section 909 Variances and Waivers be enacted.
page 25.
And again, just cleaning up some old language and replacing it with new.
All right, so a lot of work has been done on this. It's always good to have a lot of different eyes on it. I really appreciate planning board, Mr. Giddings, our consultants, Becky. We'll take the comments that we've heard tonight, try to do some modifications if required by the attorney or by common sense. Any other further questions about this particular part of tonight's meeting?
That's one question. I'm wondering if it might be helpful to the townspeople when we're doing this, if we were able to put the article number in that pamphlet so that everyone could keep clear track of where we are. It might be less confusing. Just a suggestion.
Thanks, Tim. Really helped to clarify.
And point of clarification,
Thanks.
need to have confirmed whether or not we have.
Todd, could you wait a minute? Oh, sure. I might ask that question.
I just wanted to find out if we had needed to read the full ordinance or the changes of the ordinance at town meeting.
That's something I've stumbled with. I think I'm just gonna have to call the attorney. We'll have to call the attorney.
Okay, if we could check on that, that'd be great.
I've always thought we had to, but that'll be an all-nighter. But what I would call Todd back is do you see any wisdom into trying to adopt all of these ordinances as one? Or should we go one by one?
I'm thinking, with some of the comments that people have, I think we should probably go one by one. It's not all just grammatical errors.
Okay.
I don't know if we could lump the grammatical or just state statutes and then discuss the others.
Yeah. I just wanted to get your input. Mercedes, would you agree with that?
Yeah, some of these might elicit comment. I hate to hold up.
One of the things we talked about in the planning board, behind few of these ordinances are the grammatical, which just needs to get done. The state statute stuff that just needs to. And then we're making changes to the ordinance, which we want to be really thoughtful about. And we feel like we've been thoughtful, but we're not trying to slam that down the people's throats. We really want to make sure that people agree with what we're doing.
And since we need to take the articles in order that they're on the warrant, It sounds as though it's just gonna be easier to go through one by one, which is fine. I just wanted to,
I think that's the best way. Well, I don't think it's unfortunate, I just think.
yeah, just as long as I know. Yep.
Thank you for coming back. You're now released.
Dismissed.
Thank you. I didn't ask for your opinion, but. Okay. I was really needed. I know that's not true. I know your wife. Sure, she defers to you on all things. All right, Bo, onward.
Article 23, this is capital improvement articles, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $162,000 from the capital project fund. The select board is recommending approval
It's for the capital project.
for the capital project fund. Thank you.
This is just an article to raise and appropriate money to continue the spreadsheet determinations, what the capital project needs. Any questions about Article 23? None? Bo?
Article 24, to see if the town will vote to appropriate up to $276,500 from the capital projects fund for the purchase of the following items and to authorize the select board to take all actions necessary to complete such purchases. Public Works excavator, $232,500. Flail mower attachment for the excavator, $44,000. Select board is recommending approval.
Questions about Article 24? Okay,
So I got a quick one, John. How firm are we with these estimates? Are these,
they have vetted this out pretty.
okay, I just,
Carefully, yeah.
I've known a couple of things I've been seeing that they change month to month, so I didn't know if we wanted to.
Yeah, I think that they have done their best.
Okay.
Each purchase is a 2-year process. Okay,
Article 25, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $4,164 from the dedicated tax increment financing TIF General Ledger Fund G31530-00 and to raise and appropriate $743,943 for a total appropriation of $748,107 for the general government for the 2026-2027 fiscal year. Totals are listed there, but they're not actually part of the article.
Becky, could you just explain the $4,000?
Absolutely. So we established a tax increment financing district a couple of years ago. Part of the application binder with the state was we could offset certain salaries. In this case, that $4,164 is offsetting 5% of the town administrator's salary this year.
Questions about Article 25? Bo?
Article 26, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $12,500 for human services for the fiscal year 26-27.
Questions about Article 26? 4% increase? None? Oh,
Article 27. Just so folks know, too, back on the previous article, I'm on the board of FCS. So if there's a question regarding that increase, I'd like to address it, but I'll have to step out. That's fine. Okay. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $43,520 for Mallet Hall for the 2026-2027 fiscal year.
any questions about Article 27? Mallet Hall, 3% increase? Oh,
Article 28, see if the town will vote to appropriate $2,679.26 from the dedicated FEMA Grant General Ledger Fund G14203-00 and to raise and appropriate $258,417.74 for a total appropriation of $261,097 for public safety for the 2026-2027 fiscal year. Those amounts are being recommended.
We've got a amendment to this. We're gonna change it up a little bit. Jesse?
So, we've been in negotiations with the town of North Yarmouth and Durham about transport services. We had initially started with a figure of 30,000 to be split between the two towns. And after discussion with their select board, North Yarmouth Select Board, they want to, at least get paid the $400 per call that Freeport was getting paid. So we have to increase it to 20,000 per town, roughly speaking. So that would be a $10,000 increase to that budget line.
Which line item is that in here?
It would be the,
Public safety?
yeah, it would be the public safety line, the first one,
So that increase would increase by
10,000.
$10,000 more. And so there would then be a difference between what the select board is recommending versus the budget committee, because it hasn't gone to the budget committee.
That is correct.
Okay.
We could just
Yep.
state the obvious and, thank you, Jesse.
Okay.
Next.
Any questions about that article or the amendment to the article?
Article 29, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $41,228.70 from the dedicated FEMA grant general ledger fund G-1-4203-00 and to raise and appropriate $876,124.30 for a total appropriation of $917,353 for public works for the 2026 to 2027 fiscal year.
Any questions about Article 29?
Article 30, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $186,890 for solid waste for the 2026, 2027 fiscal year.
Any questions about Article 30, solid waste? Oh,
Article 31, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,005 for the Pownell Center Water Association for the 2026, 2027 fiscal year.
questions about Article 31? Oh,
Article 32, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $8,500 for cemeteries for the 2026, 2027 fiscal year.
questions about Article 32? Oh,
Article 33, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $257,356 for debt service and other obligations for the 2026, 2027 fiscal year.
about Article 33? Oh,
Article 34, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,000 for the Recreation Committee Enterprise Fund.
about Article 34? Oh,
Article 35, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,500 for the installation of PFAS filter systems and annual testing for 2 properties located near the former landfill pursuant to an agreement between those property owners and the town.
5? Yeah. Please, Jesse. Yeah.
I was just wondering if it makes sense to clarify that of the former landfill in North Yarmouth.
So I had it written that way and the attorney changed the language to what you see here.
Okay.
However, in the narratives, I think I might have explained what that is.
Article 36, see if the town will vote to appropriate $200,000 from unassigned fund balance for repairs to the sand and salt shed building. Select Board's recommending approval.
36.
Article 37, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $2,000 for the North Pownell Community Outreach.
Questions for Article 37? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Shane.
Do you think the $2,000 is enough? Should we?
That was a request that, it's the first request and it's going to be an initiation into a conversation about town support of that particular enterprise. So I think it was a wise idea to start small and hopefully we can continue a relationship. But good question. Thank you.
Exhibit B is their request as part of it.
And I also noticed that on Exhibit B, it refers to the North Pownell Community Outreach Center. Do we want to add center on to the end of the
Yes.
warrant article? I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
it reads a little awkwardly, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you.
38.
Article 38, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $5,000 for the Economic Development Committee account for the following purposes: outreach and engagement, informational materials, communications, small-scale events or workshops.
Questions about Article 38? Oh,
Article 39, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 for legal fees specific to the potential reconfiguration of Pownell Elementary School with a possible separation from Regional School Unit Number 5.
So that was the original article that the select board approved. When I sent this to draft, the attorney reminded that through our policy, that 50,000 would go back to unassigned fund at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2027. So I asked him what language would be needed if we wanted those funds to stay if that process goes beyond 6/30/2027. And so the red is additional language to talk about in public hearing and for the select board to determine in the regular meeting if they want to include that or not.
Did you read that red? So.
I would be happy to. So we're talking about with a possible separation from Regional School Unit 5, comma, with such appropriation to be made into a separate account, the balance of which shall not lapse into unassigned fund balance at the end of 2026, 2027 fiscal year, or any other fiscal year until the purpose of that account has been achieved in the sole and exclusive discretion of the planning board. Select board.
Okay, so that's language that has been added because if the withdrawal process should occur, it would be a lengthy process of not knowing when legal funds would have to be. So that's just to keep that in the account. And the select board would be responsible for returning it to the town if and when that withdrawal process ended or never happened. Any questions about that? Sure, there'll be questions at that one town meeting. All right, Article 40.
Article 40, see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to issue general obligation bonds or notes in the name of the town in a principal amount not to exceed $4 million, which bonds or notes may be made callable to pay costs to design, construct, and equip a new fire station and public works facility, the project. 2, to expend up to $550,000 of available tax incremental financing, TIF, revenues to pay project costs. And 3, to apply for and accept state and federal grants, including up to $4 million in federal congressionally directed spending, CDS funds, to pay project costs and reduce the amount of bonds or notes issued for the project. If the town does not receive CDS funds, the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project this fiscal year.
Any questions by Article 40?
So as I read that, the town would need to receive the funds in 2026, 2027 for anything to happen.
I just want to put in a what if with that, because if we don't get funding this year, but we apply and get it next year before town meeting, then I would suspect that we would still be able to go for the bond. I don't know the timing of what it's going to be next year. This year was later than normal.
Go ahead, Becky.
So
Go ahead.
does the words this year, are those two words interpreting it that way for you? Because initially when we read this, those words weren't included, but it made it sound like this was the one and only time we could ask that. So we thought putting the words this year would at least give the option to ask again in future years. So I'm just curious if that is where the interpretation is coming from.
Well, I think Susan's concern is that it's highly unlikely that you'd get CDS funds received by the end of 2027, even if you applied today. Okay? So basically that means that the project could not continue, and it could be interpreted, I think, in the application for the CDS funds to say, you've got approval, but it's going to extinguish. So we're not going to give you the funds because we know you're not going to get it until then. And at that point, the town's approval will have correct?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, the attorney.
Bond.
Yeah, the attorney that wrote this article, I had a quick conversation with him, and he said that he would recommend against putting a time limit on the article because CDS funding is such a long, murky process. And probably we've applied, but we may not know, for 9, 12, or 15 months that we get these. So the bonding, if the bonding is approved, there's no time limit on when we apply for the bonds, but we're just trying to make sure that this article aligns with getting these funds, being able to bond, but not be an indefinite thing at the same point. So how do you write it so that, it's not indefinite, but it also encompasses a time frame that we don't know, really. Does that make sense, Susan, right? Those are kind of the two outliers.
I just want to ask Bo a question, if he was asking that because of the I believe it's an ordinance you have about spending the money within the year or being under contract. I'm trying to get at the gut of what's.
Well, my concern would be that when it says does not receive the funds, then in fiscal year 27, then
Doesn't specify that.
Yeah, I don't think it specifies.
It just says this fiscal year, the last three words we added at the recommendation of our planning associate. Those were not town attorney words, those last three.
So the dance here, Bo, is to try to figure out a way to, it's kind of, from my perspective, hurry up here. But I think the article wants to assure townspeople that we're not going to go it alone without CDS funds. So we're not going to fund this project unless we get that funding. And there's really no way to say that other than the way we've said it. So part of the article is to say, look, we need to have this article approved in order to apply for the grant. But this does not necessarily mean that we're going to build this, or we can. The town is not looking to build this project on its own, so it needs that grant money.
And to top off what John has just said, we don't get it this year, but we apply next year. We can then prove to the grant folks who are approving, et cetera, recommending that the town is in favor and is going to support Because it's very unlikely, I believe, that we will be able to get congressional grants if we don't have the town's backing.
Oh, that I understand. My concern is that when we're saying this fiscal year somehow could be construed by the grantor as saying your approvals by the town is got a grandfather on it. You're not going to get the money in that time frame. Therefore, the approvals doesn't mean anything to us.
Now, yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
But
Um,
the town does not. I think it indemnifies the town, rightfully so, but the bond, we can always bond. I mean, there's no time frame for the bond. So that's where, we're hoping that the DDS is going to understand the bonding process. You can always apply for the bond.
What if we say something like the town, and it's just off my head right now, so I'm not even, town does not plan to move forward with bonding until, grants have been given or some,
Secured.
or next year.
I-
Oh, yeah, order.
awarded the grant, you want me to come up there?
Please.
So the grant could be awarded and you may not receive it for another 9, 12 months afterwards.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a pain on this.
Let them know now.
But recent events have indicated that even if you're awarded and you start moving forward on the project, the feds may not necessarily, they can yank back that award. The current administration has done that. So I would be concerned with tying it to the words awarding. Until you have the money in hand, I think the town, would, until it's, secured. Funding has been secured or something.
So-
You see what I'm saying on that?
So can we strike this fiscal year for a minute? Okay, can you read the article or maybe just the last sentence? Don't read the words this fiscal year
Sure.
and tell me what your interpretation of the meaning of the article is then.
Okay,
Because that was added language after the attorney, so.
okay. If the town does not receive CDS funds, the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project,
Period.
period. To me, by dropping this fiscal year, it leaves it open for that application to be there. The approval by the town is still in place regardless until it votes to rescind it.
So I'm in the depths of my memory here, trying to remember why the attorney thought having a parenthesis into this fiscal year. If the process were to go on, let's just say we apply for 3 years and we're not successful in the 3rd year. But in the 4th year, we were successful. Judging from current inflationary rates, these figures would be wrong, correct?
Those figures they have figured are good till 2028,
These dollar amounts were based on 2027.
2027, thank you. So the attorney didn't add this fiscal year. Yeah,
We
okay.
did.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Well, we
Yes.
added it because it sounded like we were dropping the project. We weren't doing it this.
It made it sound like this was the one and only time we could.
Right.
Correct. That was the concern, the way it read.
That's
So
why we
that's why
added
we
it.
added those words. So that's why I was just curious to see what his interpretation without those words were after we had gone through it.
Maybe saying instead of saying this fiscal year, saying town does not receive CDS funds, the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project without additional approval at town meeting.
Then you'd
That-
be approving we'd be rewriting history because we've already approved bonds.
We may be holding up.
All it says is if it doesn't receive the CDS funds, you're gonna come back to town meeting.
Why can't we word something that if we do receive the funds, that we will be able to continue at that time instead of waiting for another town meeting?
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
I said, I would rather us somehow state it right up front to begin with, so that if we receive the funds, we can go on with the bond, because if we do it, if I'm understanding your way correctly, that doesn't prove to the congressional folks who are approving it that we have funding, because we'd have to go back to town meeting.
Jane, you have a,
And I would add is, we're gonna have next year's annual town meeting before the end of the fiscal year. So if it is close and there is possibility of us getting this grant, you just ask the townspeople to continue it for another year. And then it wouldn't tie up bond money, because,
We wouldn't go for a bond until we knew we had.
yeah, but if the townspeople are approved that bond and then you get funding 3 years from now when you want to do another bond, it could put the town in a spot where it has to purchase multiple bonds and multiple projects.
so thanks, Shane, because that's why we included this fiscal year. But I think hearing what you said and listening to Bo, if we could just add, instead of this fiscal year, upon town meeting approval, that would mean, that would protect the town. That would protect the fund application. Don't want this article to fail because people don't understand what's going on. So if they continue to have say in the process, which would be your amendment on town meeting approval, that would also brackets on the process. So if we had to increase the amount, town would have to improve that increase in the amount.
Yeah,
I'm really concerned that that's going to not be enough proof for the congressional grant folks to approve it, because we're still having to go back for an approval.
you'd only have to go back for approval if you don't get the CDS funds. That's what that sentence says. It says, if the town does not receive CDS funds, then the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project without, subsequent vote at a town meeting.
So if we got funds next August, not this coming, but 2028, we would still be okay to move forward without another town meeting.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be proceeding until next year. You wouldn't be that last sentence doesn't tie it to time. It just says if you can't get the CDS funds, you're gonna be coming back to town meeting in order to proceed with the project. If you get the funds, you don't have to come back to town meeting.
But we're still not proving to, I think I'm missing something.
Once the town says yes, that's all the say that the feds would need to award the funding. See how we're looking at this, because if we say we're not moving forward unless they give us money, it's a yes vote, the town said we're willing to spend up to 4 million. The feds say, hey, you're in it for 4 million, here you go, then we proceed. Back to town meeting if needed. Or additional fund, basically is what it's going to wind up being.
To just piggyback on that, it's giving you another option to move forward with the project if you don't get CDS. So it's saying, by adding that language, it's saying the town says, yes, we support this project, we want to see those CDS grants. If for whatever reason they don't give us, we could go back and say, okay, town, well, now we need $6 million from, you know, in bonds versus, you know, the 4 million that we're looking at. So it's just giving an avenue that if CDS decides in the next 12 months that it's not going to award us any money, we can go back to the town and say, okay, we're going to go a different avenue on how to fund this project. But this is saying right now, you know, it's just that last sentence. It says if we don't get the funds, then we have to go another avenue. It's allowing an open avenue for that.
Not saying the town doesn't support it.
Correct.
Because one other thing that's popping into my mind right now is with the way this is written, and if we say up to 4 million, what happens if CDS doesn't give us the full amount we've requested or put in for? That clause will also leave it to where we can come back to the town and say, look, we've got 75% of what we asked for. Do you want to spend the extra little bit to carry it through? Is the way my mind kind of to work for it.
Well, we have another public hearing, right? So we could write it out.
We have a second public hearing.
Yes, or I could send it to the committee.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think John had a comment.
I have a suggestion. I would suggest we go with what the lawyer is suggesting. That's what you're paying him for, or her. And then secondly, I'd pay the lawyer to write down what these things mean in common language. Like, what if this doesn't pass? What if it does pass, but we don't get this from this group? The lawyers are trained, obviously, to do stuff like that. I mean, you folks, I don't think have to try to specifically write an article. Get the lawyer to go with that. And get the lawyer to have a handout at town meeting that explains exactly what happens if under different situations.
Thanks, John. The lawyer did write this article. What we're stumbled on is, which goes to your advice, is that we added this fiscal year to it. So that's where we're stumbling. The lawyer did not add that, right?
That's correct. The lawyer did not add that, and he did state trying not to put a time limit on it because you don't want an expiration while you're still waiting for the CDS funding, because that is a long process.
Because very few people understand legalese. Everybody understands common language.
Mhm.
Just
You're right about that. Thank you, John.
Have a comment on Exhibit C. If the numbering on Article 39 and Article 40 on Exhibit C on this little handout is off.
Okay.
It says Article 39 is for Future Facilities Committee and Article 39 is about Pownell Elementary.
Oh, because the numbers shifted because we had an added article. So yeah, your exhibit will need, we'll need to update that.
Did we have a resolution, or what are we gonna do with it?
Again, my concern, just so to clarify, I would be comfortable with just striking the words this fiscal year. And my concern with this fiscal year is that it could be construed by the grantor as the town only approves it for this fiscal year. And therefore it's not approved. Because you're not gonna get the funds in that timeline. And that's based on the work that I did when I was on the committee and talked to the congressional offices.
We
So,
will strike that. I'm looking for a head nod. And send that to, we don't need the attorney, that's.
That would be the original written article that way. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to say if the town does not receive CDS funds, the town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes.
For the project.
But then we have an article coming up wanting $405,000 to proceed with the project.
We'll talk about that when we get to it.
That's next.
It's a. Sure. And to, I'll read Article 41, but I think I can clarify for Susan. Article 41, to see if the town will vote to appropriate 405,000 for the from unassigned fund balance to the Future Facilities Committee account for the following purposes: permitting, fundraising, grant writing, and design and construction drawings for the proposed co-located fire department and public works building. The limitation from in the last article, that last sentence says the town does not receive the CDS funds. The town will not proceed with the project or issue any bonds or notes for the project. I see what you're saying. So what if you, in that last sentence, going back to Article 40, you say the town will not issue any bonds or notes for the project?
Well, I have problems with Article 41,
Okay.
so. It's so unsubstantiated. I mean, this is like a shopping list, but it has no budget to it. I mean, so it speaks to the vagueness of the whole, the whole process here. So somehow we have to have language in here. I mean, this to me is a wooden stake asking to appropriate this much money without any kind of clarification to what, to any kind of budgeting at all. I'm very uncomfortable with it. So that's just me. I'm one of three, but. And the number was just, taken out of, figure from last year. So anyway, so let's get back to the first conundrum. So there has to be work moving forward to this project. So there needs to be a budget. I'm assuming in order to apply for the grant, there needs to be now there's been money appropriated for one aspect of the project. And I'm assuming there's a follow-up to what do we call the thing that's been approved? What's that called?
We're doing the site design.
Site design. So the next step would be X. And the step after that would be Y. I think it's very important if we have an article like this to very carefully state what are the next steps and why they need to be taken in order to apply for the grant. Because if we're starting to spend a lot of money, it's contingent upon grant approval, and that grant approval doesn't happen, and we've spent this money into a kind of an auditor black hole. Does anyone else feel the unsettledness that I have? Jane?
The only thing that I would say is, from my understanding, the project had to be shovel ready before you could get the grant. Is there any timeline on when the engineers will have the project fully completed?
I think.
Because if it
Great question,
takes,
Jane. I think one of the problems is the definition of shovel ready. And that's where we're fumbling around in the dark here.
right,
It says, no, you can't look that up in Merriam's.
right. The only thing that I was thinking is that if you approve the money, but it takes the engineers 6 to 9 months to get the project ready, or all the engineering and everything, then you already missed this whole year.
Well,
So it's,
so our planning consultant recommended that we do the site plan, and that would be an indication of it being shovel-ready. Okay, that allowed us to have her proceed with the grant application. So there's nothing else in the process that has to be done with the grant that we applied for where we are right now.
So is it kind of pointless to get all the,
Well, it may not be pointless. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it causes confusion. At least from my perspective, if we're at town meeting, someone says, well, why are we doing this? Other stuff. Why are we spending $405,000 if we're not sure that we're going to get the money? Because we could have $405,000 of engineering, grant writing, permitting.
okay.
I have a thought, because we've talked about
Thank you, Shane.
a lot. One is, I think the wording of Article 41, the way that it is, ought to be more detailed. This is essentially a follow-up on what got approved last year, and the same discussion happened last year. Would it make a difference, and is it possible to change the order of the articles so that Article 41 comes first and Article 40 comes second? And we're able to clarify that Article 40 is specifically tied to actually trying to get a grant. Because in my sense, the process of getting things shovel-ready and the engineering is, as you said, step X, but then the grant is step Y. So you have to do this in order to be able to apply.
But that isn't true, Kate, because we've done what we need to do to apply for the grant. Becky?
Just to clarify, we have applied for the grant.
Right.
Yes. Also, BH2M is doing the civil design, and those deliverables are due in mid-June. Just for clarification for the record.
So what is Article 1 for? Article 41.
That's what I'm asking. Jesse?
So I don't know all the numbers and I don't have all the figures in my head, but I know that Article 41 talks to the permitting that wasn't covered in B2HM's proposal, the further permitting that has to happen. It also doesn't cover the architectural design and layout of the interior of the building. So I think those two things are the big drivers of that number. On top of that, the committee's asking for some money to continue on with grant writing if other grants come available that the grant writer can apply for, and to do our own fundraising and public information.
Can you imagine?
I can.
So I appreciate it, and I'm sure you've thought out what you're gonna need the money for. But from the town's perspective, taxpayers' perspective, does it make, if there were a timeline with a budget and, these are the steps that we need to continue the project, it would just be so much more palatable than spending money without having grant approval.
Mhm.
It's a tough one. And it's gonna be, well, I can't predict the future. I imagine there'll be a few questions on Article 40. I want to make sure we're not fumbling around for answers. We know exactly 41 stays in the world, exactly why it's there. And what is its purpose towards getting a grant approved? It's gotta be that specific. It can't be, we're gonna move on with a project because we want the project to continue. Because the project may not continue, and that would be money that would be spent on a project that wasn't approved.
Right, we've already spent money on a project that wasn't
I
approved.
understand, I'm trying to minimize,
Yeah.
you know, the perception that we're, I'm speaking to Bo's sort of, you know, sort of acknowledgement that this is a funky area now in terms of
Mhm.
grants.
Mm-hmm.
So
So those costs, minus the fundraising, minus the grant writing portion of it, would still have to be absorbed by that project if we didn't have that money. Yeah,
fiscal well.
yeah.
I just don't want to, I mean, you know, board's responsibility is the viability of this budget. George, you look pensive here. Do you have any thoughts?
I'll let Kate go. She's looked like she's had something to say for a few minutes.
Presented at one point by Kyler Fiegels,
Yeah.
a list of what the permitting would cost, and then he edited the list to show that actually the permitting was going to be reduced by a very large amount, that something wasn't going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah,
And I'm assuming that's a little bit of going into the calculation of the 405.
I would assume so.
I think it's a little bit also what John is speaking to and what I'm concerned about, despite town meeting or
Yeah.
any residents, I'm concerned
Yep,
that there isn't a budget for this and we don't know what costs how much. And so I would like to see a better.
so should we do an exhibit that explains it or rewrite the article explaining it?
Go ahead.
I would suggest that
You have your microphone on, Bo.
Okay. I would suggest, Jesse, and to the board that if after Article 41, you had a schedule, you know, budget listing those. So that answers many of the questions that folks might have. That, just like when we're spending money for government, we're just approving a total amount. We're not approving the individual line items, but they're shown so that people understand where the numbers are coming from. But you're not
Kind of
locked
like
into
a,
that.
kind of like a department budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. That's a great suggestion, which I strongly endorse. But can you understand the idea of spending $400,000 on a project that is not a sure deal?
And my gut's kind of going like where you're going, John, is at town meeting, I fully expect somebody to stand up and say, well, if we just approved $4 million for this project, why do we need to pay another $405,000 for stuff that should be considered part of it? The design and the construction drawings should be part of that $4 million plus the CDS funding. Me personally, if this number was just say reduced to cover for the fundraising and the permitting, okay, but when I think what's getting lost in translation is we're still looking to, or I'm not saying we, the committee appears to be looking to still get the engineered plans for the building, which, if I recall correctly, should be in the neighborhood of $300,000.
Right. That's
But if if the town authorizes up to 4 million, why do we need the 300,000 if this is just me speaking
I
out
know.
loud, and I could see somebody asking the same questions at town meeting.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
no, please don't.
Okay, okay.
So if you come up with something like that,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
we'll have to really wrestle with. George, thank you for summarizing, 'cause that's exactly what some of those articles in the article would necessarily be considered part of the construction. But please put that in and we'll wrestle with this language a little bit. I don't want, purpose isn't to derail the project. My purpose is to make it completely clear, completely transparent.
Yeah. And our purpose is just to continue working while we're waiting.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can you see where that
Yeah. Yeah.
construed as spending money without? Yeah, Tim. This better be good.
I noticed in article, I think it was 36 with the salt shed, we didn't put up to. We normally put up to when we don't really know what the number is. And I don't know, maybe we do know what that number is, but here's another case of we don't know what that number is. So I think if we had changed that to an up to, and then that gives the committee time to come up with a shopping list. And if need be, it can be amended on the floor of town meeting to say up to something different.
Where is the salt shed?
No, I'm talking about this 405,000.
Yeah, okay, that's good for the salt shed. That's a great suggestion. Yeah, Shane.
Would it be possible to just split Article 41 and like get the building design separate as an article and then the land?
You say that again?
It'd be possible to split Article 41, because if you design the building's always gonna be the same, whether it goes there or somewhere else or anywheres. But if you design the land around too, and it doesn't go there, you're throwing the money away.
Yeah, that's a good point, but it still begs the question, what if the grant doesn't come? You have spent,
Yeah, but at some point, the town's gonna get a new fire station. And the building's gonna be,
I think you're presupposing the future.
right, well,
Can you tell me if I'm gonna get a new car this week?
if you go buy one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to be a smart ass. But
Right. No, but I just figured if you split it, it'd be two lesser amounts. And
that's a good point. Thanks. Go ahead, there, Bo.
Not to jump ahead, but the subsequent draft article, appears to begin to bifurcate the project between fire
We haven't
stations.
got there yet.
I know, but speaking to questions that people may have,
Bet.
how does that all tie together? And so
You're right.
I'm just reading the articles. I'm not proposing.
It's the danger of reading ahead. All right, so Jesse will assuming, the committee, I'm sorry. We'll put up to, and I'm gonna spend some more money from the attorney and just see the implications of this Article 41 in terms of committing money to a project that has not been approved. The question has to be answered. All right. Anything else? Anyone want to kick this around anymore? Good discussion. That's why we have a public hearing. Let's try
You want to move on to Article 42?
reluctantly, yeah.
Okay. This is a draft article. I'm not sure what a draft article is, but to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to execute a purchase and sale agreement for the town's purchase of a portion of certain property located at 716 Hodgson Road, map 5, lot 38, the property sufficient for the construction and location of a new fire station on terms that the select board deems to be in the best interest of the town, and to take all other such actions, including but not limited to the execution of contracts, agreements, representations, and other documents necessary for the completion of such transaction, on the condition that the town agrees to pay for the cost of a survey for the entire property, of the entire T property to be performed prior to closing, the cost of permitting the division of the property under the town's land use ordinance, and the costs of all legal services, including but not limited to deed preparation and closing associated with the completion of such transaction. And two, appropriate an amount up to, an amount not to exceed $350,000 from the unassigned fund balance for the purchase of, for the purchase price and other costs required to be paid by the town, incidental and related to the purchase of the property, included but not limited to the survey, permit, and legal costs described above.
Go ahead, Becky.
So just to answer your question about a draft article, this article has not yet been approved by the select board to be on the warrant. However, we had language written so that we could have a discussion in public hearing about this potential purchase or this proposed lot.
So this is one of those conversations that come trying to anticipate the future. And I guess I take exception to sufficient for the construction and location of a new fire station in the article on line 3. I think we were considering all possible uses, and the kind of inspiration for this article came from the Economic Development and Sustainability Committee, who thought this is a lot in the village district of 5 acres that may be suitable. And would you consider putting it on the town warrant to see if the town had a appetite for purchasing this property? So that is the genesis of this article. Now, some of the conditions, such as the town having to pay for the surveys, rather outrageous, came after the fact. So we're really in kind of a speculative form here. Did you have your hand up, Tim?
I want to agree that I don't think that this should be tied to any one thing. I think it should be for the town's purposes. It could be the town's purposes to sell it, could be to keep it for a Dollar General from moving in. The other thing that I want to clarify or have clarification on was, I think the owners of the property were asking for the town to pay for a survey to survey one lot, not the entire property,
Okay, so just the lot in question.
just the one lot.
So that makes a
Correct.
big difference. Thank you.
And
That's
that's what would be needed for permitting to subdivide, correct? That's what would be necessary to subdivide, would be a survey.
And just to go to what you said about the Economic Development Committee, when I brought this to them during that night, I said, do not consider it for anything other than, is it in the town's best interest? Don't assume for fire stations or whatever. And that's what they based their decision on, saying they liked it, so.
I'm sorry if I muddied the water that. I didn't mean to. Because I've heard, talking to some townspeople, wonderful opportunity for, let's just say, the town decided we were going to invite someone to develop senior housing. Perfect spot when you consider the village district, putting it there. It just feels like the responsible thing to bring it before the town, see if the town has any appetite to spend the money. So, Kate, what do you think?
So 2 questions. So then would you strike the language of sufficient for the construction and location of a new fire station? Would you add any language there?
I think what Tim said was appropriate, for
In terms of
the purposes that
best
sees
interest of the
fit.
town?
Mhm.
And then my other question is, so the amount of 350,000, that's based on estimating what the cost of the survey might be, essentially?
I hope the survey doesn't cost $350,000.
No, I'm saying in addition to what was discussed with the owner.
I think their owner,
Yeah.
owner threw out $250,000.
I think they said 300.
They, it was 300,000, so the additional 50 is for any survey, closing costs, attorney's fees, deed filing, yes, legal fees.
So the question on the table is, do we want to change this from a draft article to an article and let the town consider it? Is it worth moving forward? Do we feel is it appropriate? Okay.
I think it should be changed to an article with that language struck and also be more specific about the cost of the survey and make sure that it doesn't say the entire property, but it says the lot to establish
Yeah.
the lot.
George?
Yep, same thing I was gonna mention about striking out that portion of the entirety property. So,
Would it be worth just having the whole property surveyed, just so the town knows what it owns?
Well, that's what we're recommending. We were surveying the lot in question. There's 2 different lots in that old Knight property. Just surveying the lot that they're willing to sell us. So it'd be the whole lot, 5 acres.
Not the 1 acre that they want to cut off, or is that?
I think to Shane's point, I think he's got a good point, is that the town ought to know how many acres are we buying? Was it 3? Is it 4? Is it 2?
I thought well,
They won't commit to an acreage until the survey is done because they don't know what, so they're focused on it being a new fire station. That's what all their emails have come in at. And so when I sent them the memo of understanding, they didn't want to include acreage on it. They wanted the town to pay for a survey to know what the minimum acreage amount would be needed for a fire station and then go from there. So
we need to go back to them and say, no, the town is interested in purchasing the whole lot.
the 4.98 acres, I think, is what initially was talked about. Yep.
So good point, Shane. I didn't realize. Okay,
Yep. The other piece, we should probably talk about the unassigned fund balance with this. So with this article, it then puts us over the minimum amount we're required to keep in. So we're going to have to consider the financial part. With all the other committed articles, we're at the limit of what we can put on the warrant next year and keep our minimum balance as required by MMA. This would have to come from taxation.
I mean, the town's gonna decide. There goes the flat budget.
Well, the operational budget is still flat. This isn't operational.
Does that language need to be changed as well?
What's that?
Does that language need to be changed?
Yes, we would have to change where I think he declares in there from the unassigned fund balance. We would have to say raise and appropriate. In that case, we might actually be able to say from taxation. I'll ask the town attorney on that.
So you have to have a specific amount on the raise and appropriate from.
That's true.
taxation.
Can't be an up to.
The up to could be from the unassigned balance. Now, that limit assumes that your previous articles have passed.
That's true.
The article before, for instance, you've got 405,000 coming from unassigned balance. Do you know how much that it would exceed the limit? And that limit, I assume that limit assumes a certain amount going back in
Yeah.
from the budget.
That does not assume, because I don't know that. I won't know that till after June 30th. This is going off from only keeping a 2-month of payables in there. It would exceed it by 305,000. Basically the full amount of the article. We're really at, with the previous articles already motioned on, and if they all pass, we have really spent.
It'll have to be $350,000 from taxation. It's gonna have to buy. So. So does the board, although we can't move on this with a head nod, does the board feel that? So we should move toward the town meeting. So should the town have a say in this? Should the town see this as a possibility and vote on it? That's a yes, Kate?
I would nod my head yes, but I think we definitely need to make sure there's clarification with the seller.
So George, so we'll move forward based on a conversation with
The Francises.
with the Francises on the total acreage of 4.9 acres,
498.
498. Right?
And that the town cannot be limited to only a fire station.
Right, right.
It sounds like they've got their heart set on the fire station.
Yeah. no. They don't have to sell it to us then. Okay. So when we come out of public hearing, we'll have to put that.
That's your first order of business, is to go over the edits.
Okay? Jim, you all right with that? No, I mean, you got eyes on. All right,
Article 43, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $60,000 for the assessing and revaluation reserve.
questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, you might remember this. You were both on the budget committee. We talked about our favorite electrical transmission company and how it might be good to have an expert come in and value that utility. Well, you can't just value one utility. You've got to value all the utilities. There are 4 utilities in Pownell. They're the 4 biggest taxpayers in town. And I was surprised to find out that over the last 2 years, the amount of taxes they pay have gone down. They've gone down because the residential valuations have gone up 1 year 20%, 1 year 30%. Those were the adjustments that Donna made and the assessors. So this is great that we're putting money away to do the revaluation. But when we were on the budget committee thinking was take the utilities, do them first. Hire an expert, go out, look at those 4 utilities. What they send in right now is just a handful of papers that show their total valuation. You talked about lowballing, John, last year. I read that. This all ties in together. I don't see any reason why Pownell couldn't hire an expert, go out, look at those 4 utilities. That could impact the amount of money that we have to raise amongst the residential people. It could jumpstart the amount of money that the town is bringing in this tax year. So I make a recommendation that you add a line on Article 43 to give you authorization to hire an expert if you could find one.
As you know, you and I have talked about this. I've talked about this, our assessing agent for the past 15 years. And we have yet, I think the state is, I guess I can't speak. It's a personal property tax that's really kind of balling up the works, because if we were to go and I guess I can't speak to it with any clarity because I need Donna here to help me. All right, that's a good suggestion. I'm not quite sure how we would ask to see if the town would vote to raise and appropriate X amount of dollars to hire an industrial utility assessor for the utilities in Pownell. How would you word that article?
You're raising money, you raised money a few years ago. This is a second batch of it. That's going to give you a total. What you only need to do is to get authorization to spend a portion of that money on the utility part of the total valuation of the town. So when a regular assessing company became available to do the whole town, the part that they would not have to do would be the utilities. I mean, your assessors, you could go out anytime you want and look at those utilities. You're not qualified to do it. Donna isn't qualified to do it. There are a couple of people that I've heard are expert in that case. So you would need authorization to spend a portion of that account to do a portion of the valuation of the town.
Oh,
Um,
good point, John.
just a couple of further thoughts. One would be, I think you would want to go through an RFP process to get bids on that. You may find that there may be folks out there that are willing to do it on contingency basis based on their savings that they could achieve for the town. And two, and I'm not sure that it would cost a lot to go out for an RFP. But the way I read this article, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate 60,000 for the assessing and revaluation reserve. It doesn't say who you're spending that to, who you're expending that money.
That's right.
Well, you could. I don't think a change in the article is necessary to pursue that further.
Well, you need money to expend the money. You're just raising it right now. You need money to spend it. You need wording to spend it, excuse me. What, there are a small number of towns, similar to Pownell, that have a large part of their tax base. The tax base for those utilities was about 25%. With the redistribution of the pie, with residential valuations going up and their valuations staying the same, their part of the tax base is down to 16% now. Okay, so it's a real issue. So I don't think you have to do any more than contact 2 or 3 people. That's what the other towns in this similar situation do. They talk to them, they sign a contract, and they go out and do it.
Have you talked to any towns that actually have professional industrial?
Yes,
Could you give us those names?
I've given you those names. Okay, I'll send it again. Okay, I'll send you some background. It's you guys are really busy. I appreciate what you're doing. But from my point of view, I think this is something that could really help the town relatively quickly.
It's been a problem forever when our percentage valuation goes down, so does CMP.
Well, the hope would be that their values would go up quite a bit and take the load off this. I'll send you what I have. Thank you.
Can you please send that to the select board email?
Yeah.
Becky?
Just a quick question, Bo, does the word appropriate allow us to spend the money, or do we have to be more specific? Because it says to raise and appropriate.
Well, it's just putting that money into the.
Okay.
Into the, it's not spending the money.
So what would we need for language if we did want to have access to it to pursue that?
Well, what I would say is if you drop the word reserve, you say to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $60,000 for the assessing and revaluation.
I agree. Okay. Yes, Tim, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was spaced. No problem.
So I'm not disagreeing with some of what John just said. I think, to get an expert to come in here and do the utilities is a great idea. But I'm remembering from assessing 101 that you have to have a snapshot in 1 year of values. So it really won't do any good to have one part of it valued this year and one part of it valued in 2 years, because it's not going to be fair and equitable. And the other thing, to your point that you started to make, John, was that a lot of CMP's value is in personal property. And I'm assuming Maine Natural Gas and it was the same way. And we can, to be fair and equitable, we have to charge everybody for personal property if we're going to charge one person or one company. So.
I understand the issue. I would argue though that as a corporation, they are considered operating assets, fixed assets, not personal property. They're two different, very different things. Personal property versus, versus corporate assets, operating assets.
I appreciate your thoughts, Bo, but I think our assessing agent who has explored this would disagree that if we were to go down this path, we would have to assess everybody equitably.
I mean, it just may be worth another opinion on that.
Right. You're absolutely right. Okay, so if we drop the reserve on this one, then we can explore.
Does that work for you?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Article 44 to see if the town will, Article 44 to see if the town will vote to authorize. Need to add the word to. Vote to authorize the select board to appropriate up to $863,626 of non-property tax revenues to reduce the total amount authorized to be raised by taxation, and to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board and town treasurer to accept any additional revenues or funds and expend any other revenue from the town, from the state, federal, local, and private sources for the support of the town that may be used to reduce the amount required to be raised by taxation. There's a schedule of them below, but.
Questions about Article 44? Oh.
Article 45, these are business articles. Article 45, to see if the town will vote to appropriate up to $200,000 from unassigned fund balance for the purpose of reducing tax commitment.
45.
And just for point of clarification, you would know how much was going back into the reserve into unassigned balances when you're setting the tax rate?
No, the audit's not done at that point. The audit doesn't happen until September, end of August versus September.
Okay.
I would have a rough idea of what the underestimation and revenues and the unexpended was just by what I have for figures in Trio, but it wouldn't be an exact figure.
Okay. So, well, we passed all these articles, okay? And we just illustrated that the $350,000 mentioned in a previous article had to come from taxation, couldn't come from unassigned balance. What happens if the town passes this article at $200,000 and when we go to the commitment, we use that $200,000 from unassigned balance? Does that mean that the $400,000 for the permitting, design, et cetera, that whatever amount is approved can't be spent because all of a sudden there's no more money in unassigned balance?
No, those articles are part of my calculation and were approved by the select board to be on the warrant. So this one, the 405, I think there was one
Oh, the
other.
200,000 is included in your.
That is included in my
Okay,
calculation. Yes, that
thank
is
you. Okay.
included. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Never mind. Article 46, to see if the town will vote to authorize select board to transfer any funds remaining in the Pownell Center Water Association, AKA PCWA, operating fund at the end of 2025, 2026 fiscal year to the PCWA Reserve Fund.
Question about Article 46.
47, to see if the town will vote to set September 15th, 2026, December 15th, 2026, March 15th, 2027, and June 15th, 2027 as the date on which 1/4 of property taxes for the for the 2026, 2027 fiscal year shall be due and payable, and to charge interest at the rate of 7% per 7% per year, computed on a daily basis on any portion of the installment dues that remain outstanding as of September 16, 2026, December 16, 2026, March 16, 2027, and June 16, 2027. 2, permit the tax collector or their designee to waive unintentional tax interest payment shortages in an amount not to exceed $5. And 3, authorize the tax collector to accept payment of real estate property taxes not yet due or assessed pursuant to 36 MRS paragraph 506, provided that the town shall owe no interest on such early payments.
Question 47.
48, to see if the town will vote to set 3% on the interest rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes pursuant to 36 MRS 506-A, and to authorize such interest paid or abatements granted to the appropriated from overlay funds, or if necessary, from unassigned fund balances.
Question 48.
49, to see if the town will vote to authorize select board to transfer not more than 3% of the town's budgeted expenditures between budget line items within an individual department, provided that the town's total budget expenditures within the individual department shall not be increased.
Question Article 49.
Article 50, to see if the town will vote to authorize select board to transfer any unexpended funds to carry forward accounts within departments and or communities to complete projects for the previous fiscal year. 51, to see if the town will vote to authorize select board and treasurer on behalf of the town to accept any unconditional gifts, unanticipated donations, or pass-through funds that may be provided by individuals, business associations, charitable groups, and or other organizations which have not been listed in any previous articles, if the select board determines that the gifts, donations, or pass-through funds and their purposes are in the best interest of the town to expend such funds for their intended purpose. To see if the town will vote to authorize select board or their designees to seek, accept, and disperse grant funds from private, county, state, or federal agencies for the purpose so designated for in each specific grant, and to execute any documents related to such grants. 53, to see if the town will vote to appropriate 100% of all funds received from the registration of snowmobiles to the Rocky Coast Riders and Tri-County Penguin Snowmobile Club for the purpose of maintaining their snowmobile trails, which are open to the general public without charge for snowmobile purposes and any other uses that may be authorized by the property owner.
Well read. Well read. Wow, thank you, Bo, for patience and endurance,
Yeah, it's my pleasure, as always.
for insight too, which is very helpful.
Uh,
Very helpful. All right.
I'm not sure I didn't.
We move on to our regularly guested program.
Do you mind if we take maybe 1 or 2 minute pause? Okay, I'm just gonna.
Move. Bo, thank you. Next item on the agenda is accounts payable, AP warrant number 22, the amount of $84,383.72.
I move that we approve accounts payable warrant number 22 in the amount of $84,383.72.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve AP warrant number 22 in the amount of $84,383.72. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Next item is payroll journal number 416, the amount of $14,162.96.
I move that we approve payroll journal number 416 in the amount of $14,162.90.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve payroll journal number 416 in the amount of $14,162.96. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Next item is minutes of March 9th, 2026, regular meeting.
Move that we approve the minutes of March 9th. Regular meeting.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 9th, 2026, regular meeting. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. Opportunity for any resident of the town of Pownell to step forward and be heard by the select board. Mr. Brady.
If there's still an opening as an alternate on the planning board, would it be possible to join that committee or board?
Absolutely. Fill out a volunteer form.
Okay.
You know where to get those, right at the office.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for offering to serve. Next item on the agenda is department head reports. Department head reports can be found on the website. Click on the department and the reports are there. Any questions from the department heads who are here now by the select board? Any comments from the select board at this time? Next item is new business, town meeting warrant draft edits. Yikes.
Let me go through these. Okay, Article 27, I just need to put a minus in front of the 3% because it's actually a decrease that year.
Okay.
Just an edit for me. Article 28, the select board need to amend their recommendation for that budget, for the public safety budget, to $271,097.
I move that we amend Article 28.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Okay. Let's see, those are fine. Article 36, we need to add the words up to, that is to see if the town will vote to appropriate up to 200,000 for the unassigned fund balance for the sand salt shed building.
We amend Article 36 to include up to.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? So carried.
Great. Article 37, we're going to add the word center to the end of it, so it reads the North Pownell Community Outreach Center.
Amend Article 37 to include center.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion.
Great. Article 39, that has the additional language that the select board have not approved, so open on discussion on that one. That is the RSU 5, the legal money specific to the reconfiguration of Pownell Elementary School with the potential withdrawal from the RSU 5. The language is allowing that money to stay in the account until that process is complete rather than lapsing into unassigned fund.
Move that we include the language in red in Article 39.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? So carried.
Great. Article 40, we are going to strike this fiscal year from the end of Article 40.
We strike this fiscal year from Article 40.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
8. Article 41, we are going to add the words up to vote to appropriate up to 405,000.
We include the words up to.
Second.
Article 41. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries.
Right. Okay, Article 42 is the draft article that has not been approved. So we would be striking the word sufficient for the construction and location of a new fire station. We would be striking, so after the underscore, the town agrees to pay for the cost of the survey of the striking entirety property and saying proposed lot to be performed. Does that make sense? And then down to appropriate 350,000 from taxation because we have to have an exact amount there. Those would be the changes in the proposed article for the select board to consider.
I I move we accept those changes and turn the draft article into a warrant article.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, motion carries.
I will reach out on those other points to the Francises too. Yep. Article 43, we'd be striking the word reserve.
Reserve in Article 43.
A second.
Seconded, all in favor? Motion carries.
I think that might be. I think that was it.
Thank you, Becky.
Yes, thank you.
Next
Yep.
item is the region RSU 5 warrant and notice of election. I move that we sign.
A second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carries. Excuse me.
There are 3 copies of that one and I put a little tab on those.
All right. Not sure. Here it is. Right, next item on the agenda is there's 3 there, they all have stickies. There, you all sign it, yeah. You just sign it as well. Next item is Region 10 warrant. I move that we approve the Region 10 warrant.
Second it.
Seconded. Any discussion? Favor? Carries. Just one, right, Becky?
That one's just one. I'll make copies.
Next item on the agenda is volunteer form Eleanor Ginn for Mallet Hall building grounds. Becky, you have something to say about?
Yeah, so we got that volunteer form in. I put it on the agenda and then realized that the Mallet Hall Buildings and Grounds has a full roster. They, their charge says that they have up to 7 members. They have currently 7 members. So we could reach out to Ms. Ginn and see if there might be another committee she's interested in serving on.
That we reach out to Eleanor again and see if she would like to help with another, table her volunteer form and reach out to her and ask if she'd like to serve on another committee.
A second, maybe she'd be interested in Conservation Commission.
Sure.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? So carried. Volunteer form for Cliff White for Board of Appeals. I move we approve Cliff White to be appointed to the Board of Appeals. Date of appointment, April 13th, 2006. Date term expires June 30th, 2029.
A second.
Moved and seconded to appoint Cliff White to the Board of Appeals. Any discussion? Favor? Cliff White. Next item on the agenda is Jane Brady driveway entrance permit review. Review of Fire Chief 911 log and town office paperwork procedure. ZBA. Jane, you're up.
So we talked last time about my driveway entrance permit that was on a state-owned road. To my knowledge, I'm still the first one to ever have to pay for a driveway entrance permit in the town of Pownell on the state-owned road.
So Becky, where are we with, there is no way to ascertain.
There's no way for me to isolate in Trio specific to a driveway entrance permit payment because it falls under the permit typeset when we log it in and there's 5 or 6 categories there. So I can run a report for the permit typeset, but I have no way of knowing if that $250 paid included a driveway permit, electrical permit. It just doesn't break it down that way. So
So the only way of determining would be to go to the resident.
the resident or through every code file.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Would it be possible to go through the last 10 building permits on a state-owned road,
And go to
property file, because that should narrow it down. And I figured 10's a good number, so we can,
so we would have to find out who they were and then go to them in person and ask.
there should be a receipt in the, because you gotta fill out a driveway entrance application, so it should be in the property folder.
Do you agree with that?
If they paid for a Pownell driveway permit and they were on a state road, yes, there would be an application.
But included in the building permit should be a state entrance permit. If they didn't pay for Pownell one also.
So you're suggesting we go through the 10 latest projects on state roads.
Building permits that would have required some sort of entrance constructed to get into it, yeah.
So house.
Yeah.
Hours for business. Well, I don't think any business has gone in yet.
Well, Estabrook's.
That'd be a good one to see if they paid for a driveway entrance permit.
Right. Recommended, accepted. All right, what's the next one?
The fire
You were
chief,
the fire chief 911 call.
or does the select board think that it's reasonable to hold an OUI crash against a developer?
I'm not quite sure I understand your question. Can you?
So in a couple of the accidents that were provided by the fire chief, two of them were OUIs where somebody was driving erratically or doing something they weren't supposed to and went in the ditch. One hit a telephone pole. And then there was another one where a car was passing cars on the S-turns on Elmwood Road and ran into the fence at 890. So it just, I understand.
What's the nature of your question? Where are we going here? What are you suggesting that? See,
Would the select board entertain proposing an ordinance that classified what's deemed as unsafe or what's deemed as an accident?
geez, we needed a Supreme Court decision to make that determination. Tell me where we're trying to go. What's your goal? Where are we trying to go with this? So that we can work from the back.
So my road entrance was considered unsafe because the amount of incidents is within a quarter mile of it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, because I may not be in the loop here. It was one of the concerns that was given by a department was that there were X amount of accidents on that road, and that was a contributing factor to the planning board determining that the driveway permit was in an unsafe position. Is that correct? Am I wrong? It wasn't just.
So the biggest thing that was holding it up was the 2% grade on the public roadway, which was only in the mobile home park overlay. It's not in the minor or the.
Okay, but I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Your questioning. So you're suggesting that using data that may or may not be part of a safety assessment because of driving to an impairment or unsafe driving on S-curves should be eliminated by the select board from a consideration of whether or not the driveway entrance is considered safe or unsafe by the planning board. Is that what you're asking us to do?
I was basically looking for like parameters on what's considered an acceptable reason, because like if there was an OUI crash down the road and I was trying to put in a bar, I think it's completely reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm putting in a housing development, I don't think I should be responsible for every driver on the road.
Okay, so even though it's a great discussion item, I think that's the purview of the planning board and the Board of Appeals. I think the select board, has no dog in the fight here unless you formally appeal a Board of Appeals decision to the select board. We're not, am I muddying the waters? You look like I'm confusing.
Well, I think the next step, so if he's talking about the mobile home, he has,
So I'm not looking to like go backwards or anything. I'm just looking at going forward.
Okay.
Does the select board approve of an OUI crash being held against a minor subdivision or a comprehensive subdivision or any land use development?
My thought is that whether this, that, to me, there is some question whether this falls under the purview of the select board rather than the planning board, but that safety is paramount to any decision we make regarding the people that live in this town. And in the most fair way to everybody possible. There's just, we need to be able to accept feedback from all the relevant departments, including the school organization regarding safety of all our residents. So I don't think I would make a detailed exception based on that, the potential cause of an accident.
George, thoughts?
So you're asking us to dismiss or however we want to talk about it, an OUI being held against a potential developer. But if that area is prone to see more public safety incidents than others, that still is a major concern for the public safety department. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter if it's an OUI, where you're trying to develop an area is notorious for being problematic in town.
So the only problem that I have with that statement is like the area that is prone to all the accidents is the sharp ass corner right there by the natural gas station. And it's, I believe it's more of the S turns and the drop off than it is about the hill going up towards Allen Road. So even though it's like in the vicinity of it, the primary factor that causes the accidents aren't the hill. It's more the S turns.
And I appreciate your understanding of that particular situation, but I think that would be like, you would need to get testimony from a safety engineer to, I mean, and I'm not questioning your judgment. I'm just saying, in order to overturn a decision by a board, I mean, we have no idea what's safe or what isn't safe. I hope you can understand this. I'm not trying to
Well, I'm not trying to overturn a decision. I'm just looking at the select board would entertain or look at moving forward, what is considered a safety.
Okay, you're asking for,
Because,
it have to be an ordinance to,
because in that nature, you could say that there's a speeder. And because people speed on the road, you can't put a development in. When really, I'm basically just looking for clarification on
I think that, I could be wrong, but I think the question started with a historical record of crash incidents on that road.
right.
That was provided. There was some discrepancy over which list was relevant. There was clarification made that there were more than one list based on Department of Cumberland County Sheriff's. Clarified that, but the salient question still was, how many crashes were on that road? Now, there was no discrimination between what kind of crashes, just what number of incidences that public safety had to appear on that road. And we used that data, the determine the relative definition of safe or unsafe. Am I correct? Is that kind of historically?
Yeah, that's pretty
You're
close.
You're suggesting that, that the town erred in including OUIs and Mario Karts going on.
So when the first report was run, it was run for accidents with and without personal injury. When the second report was run, it included all incidents.
Okay.
And that's, so in the state size, an accident is basically something that's unpreventable. And all incidents, yes, it put people in danger because tow truck drivers had to be there, firefighters, police. But is it an incident that could have been prevented, or is it an accident because? So,
I see your point. Um, I'm not sure. Shane, you got me on that
I
one.
have to say, I just don't think it's relevant, whether it's an accident that could have been prevented or not. That's my thought about it, is that it's categorized as an accident, and I don't know that our role as select board is to somehow detail what that might be.
so just getting back to it, a drunk driver crashing is still like a developer's responsibility.
Well, I think a dangerous, I hate to interrupt you, but I think more relevant would be a dangerous road is a dangerous road, and whether or not a drunk driver happens to have an accident on a dangerous road is not relevant to the designation of a dangerous road. So it's relevant to you because you want to see some kind of discrimination between preventable and unpreventable accidents, but I think that the planning board was just considering whether or not the grade and the accidents merited a dangerous road designation, which in their determination they did. And the zoning board of appeals, I think, went along with that twice. So,
Would that also say that, when a dangerous road is considered dangerous, does it go off percentages of traffic or does it go off incidents? Because there's 4,000 cars that travel that road every day. And over a 7-year span, you're looking at
yeah.
4.5.
That's a semantic question that I think is beyond, I make 1,000 decisions today as a teacher. And
If you get
30 of them were crappy, I know.
But does that make you a bad teacher?
That's the question. Well, the 30 kids that I threw out of school think that I'm a doofus, but I'm not sure we can provide any relief for your question. Although it's a very good question, I just don't think I don't know who could address that, Shane. I just don't know who could answer that question. I think the greater concept is, have there been a lot of incidents on that road? I think the question was answered by the run sheet. I guess that would be a judge that would have to decide that. I don't have the ability to discriminate between accidents, and I don't think anyone else on the board did. So I'm sorry that we can't provide a better answer for that, but your third question is town office paperwork. I'm assuming ZBA means zoning board of appeals. What are we talking about here?
So I came into the town office and I filed appeal, which I got out of the box downstairs, but the paper was 5 years outdated, I think.
Updated meaning that
There's been a new revised from, I think it was like 2020 or 2021.
We updated the documents in 2021. All the old ones were thrown out. I printed new ones. I don't know if someone has an old document on one of the older computers. The staff has since gone through every cubicle out front and matched it to the current one and updated and thrown anything out on every cubicle, not just CBA papers, to make sure that they're all relevant. I don't know where that application that was 4.5 years old came from, because I have not found it on any current computer.
Yeah, it was
It's-
just in
it's-
the box.
I know, but I would have thrown them out in 2021 when we updated them. It happened when I first came on board. Kathy Hoag worked on them, so.
The town apologizes for,
And then the other thing was the website copy and the actual copy didn't match.
That was just an oversight. The math was wrong. The wrong one got uploaded. I've asked for it to be corrected.
okay, so that's what,
Mhm.
again, the town apologizes for its lapses in changing the forms, and we appreciate your keeping us up to task on that. Sorry, did it give you, did you suffer a loss from using the outdated?
Yeah, so I missed a deadline on the impact fee reimbursement. So
That's incorrect, actually, because we had a discussion right here that night, and I was offering you till the next morning to put that in. That, the town attorney was even in that conversation. Because of that wrong form and the deadline being March 11th, right? We got done with the Board of Appeals, and I asked you what you wanted to do. You responded twice with it was up to us, which it was not up to us, because I wanted you to have the opportunity the next morning to file it because of that wrong form. Conversation ended with you saying to actually throw the form out, you weren't going to move forward with it. Then a week later, you emailed me stating you were bringing the appeal in, and then you didn't bring it in. Well, then you came in and we had another conversation, excuse me, but I just want to clarify that that night at March 11th at 8 o'clock, I wanted opportunity for you to be able to file that.
I
and
think
giving
it
you-
was March 11th was after the select board meeting.
No, it was after the Board of Appeals hearing. Was that March 11th? I believe it was March 11th. So that was the continuation from the January 14th meeting, right? So they reconvened March 11th to continue with your mobile home park appeal that night. And I asked you, once all that concluded, everything was over, we were standing here, I said, what do you want to do about the impact fee appeal because of that wrong form? Come see me tomorrow if you want to get it done, because the deadline was that night. Wasn't your fault that the form was wrong, and you told me you weren't going to file it.
You also informed me that the Board of Appeals would have to determine if it was issued in a timely.
I was instructed by the attorney to let you know that, but that was more than a week later.
Before the deadline.
No, that was a week after our March 11th conversation.
I know I submitted the impact fee reimbursement deal, I think on a Tuesday or Wednesday. It was on the last day that it was due. I'd have to go back and.
I'd have to go back, but we had a conversation regarding that wrong form on March 11th, and you told me you weren't going to pursue that appeal because I was offering you the opportunity to come in and get that taken care of the next day.
Believe that the March 11th date was the last date that.
That was the deadline to get, that was that 30-day deadline. And that's why I had that conversation with you, because I wanted you to have that opportunity because that wrong form was out in the front office to be able to file that the next morning. And that happened in front of the attorney. He was part of that conversation.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and relook at that because the emails back and forth would have on the date.
So can I interrupt for a minute?
Yeah.
So what is your loss was, your perceived loss was that you were unable to appeal the select board's decision on your impact fee?
Reimbursement, yeah. And because of the wrong form and then the timeliness.
You were going to appeal I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
You were going to appeal our decision to the ZBA?
It was a miscellaneous appeal, right?
Yeah.
have any ZBAs at all scheduled?
No.
Um, I'm not sure I can do this.
No, but as it states right now, I'm gonna rescind one of the permits, so it'll refund one of the impact fees. And then reissue it on a different lot with a different house. So then I'll just come back and ask the select board for a reimbursement again. But in the time being, I'll basically just throw away the one
Okay,
because it's a waste of,
so let us know, and since it's an issue that has no deadline. Because your assumption is that we misinterpreted the ordinance that was relevant to
affordable housing.
affordable housing and impact fees. So that issue has no time frame.
Right,
Our disagreement is based on something that is measured in the past. So I'll ask the next zoning board of appeals. I
right.
don't want to go against protocol, but I'll just see if that can be put on their next agenda, okay?
Okay,
So that you
Yeah.
won't be suffering a loss due to form, right?
okay. Yeah, so,
I'm sure I can do that, but that would be my suggestion, okay?
okay,
You let us know what you're gonna do with whatever permutations you're gonna have with your application, okay?
would it be able to search building permits in Trio, or is that
For,
in the town building?
I,
permits?
it's going back to the driveway entrance thing.
Yeah.
I believe a log is kept of them, so we don't even have to search for you.
So I'm all right with doing the legwork on the building permits to find out what lot they are, what road they are, then either working with Tim or Becky to figure out.
Okay.
Cause it's pretty simple to drive by and see if there's a new house there or if new
Okay.
entrance.
All right, so just keep the select board informed of your progress there. Use our email, that'd be great.
Okay,
All right, sorry we weren't able to help with all that, but thank you for bringing it up. Gotta make sure where we are. No, under your column, I want to make sure that I addressed everything. Which I think I have. We've already done the volunteer form. Is there any other new business? Any old business? Any correspondence? Any other business? Then I move we adjourn. All in favor? Nice job, Becky. Thank you for all.